So, welcome to the Slice of Time Street Photography podcast. Today I'm joined by Bram Penninckx, a street photographer from Brussels. I heard about him when he was on stage at the Donkere Kamer, an event here in Antwerp for photographers. And there he spoke about his project Le Ring, and I immediately wanted to know more about his work and his particular series. So that's why I DM'd him on Instagram in the hopes for this conversation, and now we're having a conversation, so that's great news. So, Bram, perhaps it's nice for you to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Bram Penninckx, and I'm a documentary street photographer from Brussels, living and working there. And my personal documentary projects are mainly focused on Brussels and its surroundings. It's a city you love to hate and hate to love, and it's misunderstood by many. And it's one of the drives of doing this work is. So people, but also myself, could understand the city more because it's difficult to grasp. It's a typical, let's say, Kafkaesque situations from times to times, but I find it really an interesting city, and in a good and a bad way. So that's why my work is mainly focused on the city of Brussels.
Okay, great. And I didn't quite catch. Are you born in Brussels, or is it like?
No.
Okay.
I'm coming from Overijssel, which is a town in the situated near Le Ring. It's love who brought me. I studied, went to school here in Brussels, and thanks to the woman I married, I now live in Brussels. In fact.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I was curious because you mentioned like photography was like a way for you to understand Brussels, and it's familiar because I used to live in Brussels for 3 years as well, and for me it was like going outside and doing photography was like a way to also like explore the city, like know where everything is and stuff. So that's why I was wondering if you were from Brussels itself or not, because that kind of like would be an easy explanation of why you would explore Brussels by photography. But then, like, how did you like? Was Brussels then a strange place for you that you needed to understand, or was it more like?
No, because I went primary school and high school. I were in Brussels. Afterwards, the last years of high school were in Antwerp, and I studied photography in Ghent. But I always knew the city from when I was a child, and also because it's there are a lot of positive aspects, but also a lot of negative aspects. When I was in the first year in studying in Ghent, I was robbed, my camera taken, and so on. Then you're on the crossroad, and you've got to choose. Okay, what am I going to do? Is the fear, which is an aspect which is normal after a robbery, will it take over, or do I jump over it? Do I try to because photography it's a part of me as with every photographer, and it's this is the main reason is because I felt the city has so many different stories, so many different things going on that I need to tell the story.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So, like, this was how long ago did this happen then? The robbery.
It was 2001.
Yeah,
quite a long time ago.
Yeah. Okay, and since then, like, you got over it by doing more photography.
I wouldn't say it's the last time I had some issues, but it's the first and touchons du bois. Let's touch on wood, as they say in French. The only time when I was physically harmed, let's say. So
okay, wow, okay, so an aggressive robbery, yeah.
Yeah, it really was, but yeah, those things happen, unfortunately, in every city.
Unfortunately, yeah, because when I was looking at specifically at your series of Bonsoir Bruxelles, which is
Mm-hmm.
about like the evenings in Brussels, I was wondering, like, I had a question marked down, like, how do you look at safety? Because of course, if you like in any city, of course, but I think some parts of Brussels, especially if you go out at night, it can be, I mean, yeah, dangerous or it can feel dangerous at
It can
least.
feel dangerous, but it's a feeling. That's not necessarily how it really is in reality. And did I felt insecure, unsafe at times? Yeah, sure. Did something happen at that time? No, never. And because those photos are photographed on a tripod, and I started photographing just after sunset, and for an hour maybe to capture and to capture the moment, because you never know with the combination of fading daylight and artificial light how it will turn out. So there were some times where people warned me, be careful and so on, but yeah, never had any problems whatsoever on that front, because yeah, but it's it's what I learned from it. It's the moment when you least expect it that it might happen, and when
Yeah,
you're
broad daylight. Yeah,
broad daylight, because the robbery was on broad daylight, was on a really busy street, and yeah, so it's not like, for example, they say a dark street that you will get robbed. It's vice versa. That's
yeah.
what I learned from.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah. While you were speaking, I was thinking like the irony probably was that it was like somewhere on during daylight and not during the Bonsoir Bruxelles time. So yeah, it's a shame. So, but I picked up that you did that series with tripod. Do you often use tripods on the street?
Well, in depends. So it depends on the subject. For example, the other Boswell Brussels was one part of a project I did, started 2009 till 2015, and a book was made out of it. And the other part is Bruxellisation, and it's about
Yeah,
events that happen in the city, demonstrations, but also street parties and so on, and everything in between. And that nothing of those photos was made with tripod. The other series, Brussels en route, is about that's when I took all the buses, trams, metros in Brussels, and was never made on with a tripod. So it
yeah.
depends on the subject.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
And so for The Ring, because that was of course your most recent series and the one that sparked my interests. Um, did you because it's a lot of landscapes? Do
Yeah,
you
it's only
use
landscapes. Yeah.
yeah? So did you use a tripod there as well, or
Monopod and tripod, combination of both. Yeah, because yeah, it depends on small changes, and I find it easier to work with a monopod because sometimes it depends. You're waiting on changing light, for example, or some people, because there aren't any people around. That's not something I didn't Photoshop them out of the series. It's also because it's really I would dare to say desolate area, because a lot of people are at work or working from home, but the only people I encounter are people walking their dog or someone mowing the lawn, that's one. But those suburban zone around Brussels is quite desolate, and that's also the reason why because okay, you can work with okay, there's I need an elderly couple, I need a guy with his kids coming from school. You can work with a kind of to-do list that might work for some photographers, but the problem is that that you'll um, it's when you look and search the most for something, it won't happen. For example, because I'm still working on the series, it will end begin the end of this year at the latest. I really want to make a photo of an aqueduct. Not sure if the translation is right. In fact, it's a bridge with trees and so on, where the animals can walk from one side of the forest to the other, can cross the ring road around Brussels. And for years I haven't found it. And then yesterday, because I was also doing a lot of interviews, I went for an interview with the manager of the Zonian forest, and there, when I crossed the ring, I saw exactly what I was looking for, what I needed. So that, okay, it's not coincidence, because you're looking for, you're walking around and so on. But it's also, with all the previous projects, there are some things that are in my head or I've written down. It needs to be in there. But if you're actively looking for them, you're creating maybe easier images. Not creating, you're photographing easier images, and that's a risk, because personally, for something that I really try to avoid is the black and white. Good or bad. It's never good. It's never bad. It's always in between. I wouldn't dare to say the 50 Shades of Grey, but yeah, there are a lot of different nuances, and that's something that I find really important. That tell people it's not that, for example, it's an ugly the suburban zone around Brussels is ugly. Yeah, there are some ugly situations, ugly landscapes, but there are also some really nice ones. And it's not that there that the you'll find a pristine forest, or that even in the Sonian forest, you hear the ring, you hear the traffic most of the time, but it's a mix, in fact. And that's
Yeah.
what I and also because like when you're walking around during a mountain hike, you experience 4 different seasons in one day. Well, the same can be said here in the suburban zone around Brussels, because you'll see just if you turn around, you could see a field, a forest, a suburban area, and then maybe some high-rise buildings on the horizon. And so that's the thing. Because also when you look at the landscape, you learn a lot about the situation in the Belgian situation, but also the how people from out of on the other side of the frontier, let's say, the because you've got these different regions in Belgium, how they look towards Brussels, and vice versa, the other way around, of course.
Yes, definitely true. Did you, because you mentioned like you were looking for like an aqueduct and everything. So is there like a system in how you find your photo locations, or is it kind of like you walk around at random in the different zones and find out, or how do you?
Well, because it's such a vast zone. In fact, the ring road itself, it's 75, not sure, 75 kilometers, and the zone I've photographed is 1 kilometer on either side of the ring road. So that's a really big zone, especially demarcated it not for a reason. It could be 500 meters or a kilometer and a half, but yeah, it's such a big region, and so that's the choice I made. And then what I would do is retrace all my steps in Google. I'll draw them out in Google Maps, and so I can see the whole situation. Where are the zones that I visited multiple times? Where are the places where I should go? Or I forgot. For example, now it's not something I found out recently. The for Etzwanje, the Zonia forest, is a zone that I need to visit more often. That's something I didn't forgot, but due to other parts that were that drew my attention, that's something that something that I'm sure of that I need to focus more on the coming weeks and months to capture the whole image. In fact.
So you kind of like made a heat map of where you went, if I understood.
Yeah,
okay.
heat map. Yeah, in fact, in Google Earth, you've got the satellite photo, then you've got all the different walks I made, and then because I want to be to pass through each zone at least twice, and then depending on what's for example, if there are a lot of streets, then maybe I will come back for a third or fourth time. It depends, in fact, but it's not coincidentally that I found those images and so on. No, not at all.
Okay, that's really cool. That's like, it's fun to see like that there's some kind of system, because of course it's a bit different than the previous guests, but all of them I found were more, I'm not gonna say at random, but it's like you go hunting to some degree. And for this, it's kind of like, I'm not going to call it surgical, but it leans more to surgical activity or strategy than most street photographers, which I like. I like the variation, because also it's completely different to other street photographers. As you mentioned, there's no people around. But for me, it's still street photography. It's like landscape street photography, but it's, so I like to highlight that aspect as well.
But it's not something that I came out of bed one day and I said, okay, it's only people, no people, only landscapes. It's the first year in 2020 I started, and I was just looking around, photographing also a lot of people, but other things. And some really some were because there are some very old photos in the series, but there were a lot of photos which I made. I have a small Fuji camera as well, and so they were totally different. But it wasn't. Yeah, you need to choose what kind of story do you want to tell with your photography, with the project, and for me it was. I was quite sure from the beginning on that, okay, it's the landscape which is the most important thing, because it's I would say political, bit sensitive subjects, because you've got Brussels, which is I wouldn't say French speaking, but it's a different region, and in the heads of most people, a French speaking city, and then around it, in the heads of most people, you've got the Dutch speaking Flanders around it, and the landscape, it has it does not possess some kind of political opinion, so it doesn't speak a language, but it's the result of those political decisions of the people who live there. So that's why I quite in the beginning already was mainly focused on landscapes, and then talking to people who looked at the first the photos from the first year, which helped me also a bit to focus more on the landscape. And
yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, and so like you said, like you started in at 2020, I think, with the project. Is there like if you, because you've done plenty of projects already, is there like a hard start and and you mentioned like you will have a hard stop, I've noticed. Like, is there like really a timeline for you, or or is it more like you fall into this project and retroactively say, okay, then more or less it started?
Well, it depends on the project. For example, Brussels en route was a really hard start and stop, because, for example, the buses, trams, and metros are property of the company, and you need to have permission, which wasn't quite easy to get because I started photographing just before the attacks on the metro. So that was, but I had really good relationships with the MVB, the company, and they believed in the project. But with Le Ring, it's different because I know what kind of story I wanted to tell, but also it changed because I read a lot about the subject, and there were things that were in my head that turned out not to be true, that didn't match with how it really is in the situation. Also, I wanted to avoid those black and white images, but those are the images which we are as photographers, but also as people looking at the photos, which we like more because they're easier to grasp, easier to understand. And that's why I chose in the first time. I said, okay, it will take 3 years, and then yeah, in at the end of the second year, I quite was quite sure that 3 years wouldn't be enough, and then I said, okay, it needs to be at least 5 years. So it's going to be 5 years and a couple of months because it's such a complex situation. There's so much things going on, and you've got to choose. You've got to choose what are you going to tell. Also, selecting the images, it takes a lot of time and so on. So um, that's why it took five. It's taking 5 years because the project isn't finished. But yeah.
And so, like, how many photos did you make, and how many will end up in the project?
Now I'm because I have
If you
them.
know, of course.
Yeah, I'm quite 105, 106 and counting. But yeah, some after a couple of because I on a regular basis I always look at the photos. I try to make combination with the different photos, and after some time, some images which in the beginning I thought, okay, they look nice, they look interesting. That after some time, they're not that interesting anymore. Also, there are images which do look similar. Then you would say after a time, which one do I prefer? Yeah, collecting and finding the right sequence and so on. That takes a lot of work, but it will be more or less around 100 photos for the book.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And so you're already like you're not finished, but you're already sequencing and
Yeah.
yeah.
You should because it also depends on personally for me. Yeah, I would say you should start sequencing quite early on. Maybe not the first month, but because it's the same with a writer. He writes his story. He has a storyboard. He knows where he's going. It's more or less the same with the projects I'm working on. I know where I'm going, but yeah, it's there are more things going on than when you're a writer. You're just behind your computer or typewriter or pen and pencil, pencil and paper. I mean, but it's the same thing for me personally. When you need to tell a story, that you best start sequencing, selecting or early on. But maybe another photographer has another idea. So yeah.
No, but yeah, it's I like sharing those ideas because of course everything is for different for everyone. But like hearing someone speak about something can inspire you to try it as well, find out if it works for you or not. So that's kind of like the essence of this podcast. It's like there's no wrong or right way, but it can be like hear someone out and see what where they go with their things. So you mentioned like the for the En Route series that you work together with the ABVP, or was it more like
work together? They gave me permission, so it wasn't a project in their name. because it's a documentary project. It's not some kind of infomercial to say, but as they own the place, they said, okay, but in the end, we'll give you the go ahead for all the images. It was quite a risk to take because I knew if they wouldn't like the series or some photos, then it might change the whole thing. In the book are forgot the complete number. Let's say I gave them in the end 120 photos to look at, and there were two that for totally different reasons they said, okay, sorry, but you can't use those two. And those two were I'm not going into detail because but those two were very good images. But did they change the story of the whole project? Not at all. So but how because they trusted me, because I started working beginning of 2016, and I ended the project in 2018. We got to know each other, and that's why they gave me the trust. It's it takes some time to get trusted by people or larger organizations, and especially during the first year was difficult, and it wasn't their fault, of course.
Yeah. Just for people listening out of context, in 2016, like March, I think, March 2016, we had like a terrorist attack at the airport, but also at one of the metro stops, or metro, on the train itself. So yeah, just as context, so that was at like the third month of your project then. So I can imagine, that it's not the easiest atmosphere to work in. Also, like in the trains, I'm like even apart from the company and them having to deal with those issues, like I can imagine people taking the metro are very apprehensive.
Yes, but that's something that you after some time you quite you can would dare to say feel how they are going to react, because okay, you're never sure. You're never sure how people are going to react, but after some time, okay, this I need to be a bit more careful here. This won't work, and this might work, and most of the time it turned out to be true after because you learn the hard way. There were some things which are the most difficult thing personally for me were the soldiers. I wanted them to be in the series because they were a part, but they I wasn't allowed to photograph any of them, and it took some time and creativity to get them into the series, and I managed. But for the most part, it's I never had okay. People were maybe a bit offended or angry. Um, because I heard in the previous podcast with the Greek photographer mention, do you need to delete your photos? It happened only once, and then okay, it happens, But I met drunk people. I met I wouldn't say, let's say, a group of youth who were a bit masculine to say, and so but maybe in the beginning they said, okay, what are you doing, and so on. But when you start talking, yeah,
Yeah.
most of the time it works, and they say, okay, I don't want to be photographed. Okay, yeah, tough luck. Next time, maybe better.
Of course. So yeah, that's. I think it's. I like those series. So I think it's cool work, and it's nice to hear about the behind the scenes of it. So also to get back to Le Ring. Sorry for a second. There was one photo of like it's a snowy field with a white building on it. So it like really matches very well. So I was like curious. I can't find it instantly at this second. Down. But it's basically for the people listening in. Of course, links are it's all linked down in the description or on the website. But there's this one photo of white office buildings, I think.
Yeah, no, it's apartment buildings, but
Or
doesn't matter.
apartment buildings.
Yeah.
But it's like this these big buildings with snow. Was it something you like? Okay, it's snowing today. I have to go to a place with like white buildings, or was it more like a coincidence? Or
Since in Belgium, you're a Belgian as well. It rarely snows.
exactly, yeah. That's why I was wondering.
I said to myself because it was last year. Yeah, last year, 2024, January, something like that. But the white buildings, it was coincidence. But I knew it's in Vilvoorde. Knew there are a lot of new developments going on there. So, but yeah, when I saw those buildings from afar, I knew maybe those white buildings with the snow that could work. And then I started walking around it, and then I saw the field because it's just an empty spot and a building lot, which is going to be I'm not sure, but maybe they're constructing building a new building over there right now. But then I knew, okay, that's the image I really want, because you've got the cleanness of the white, and then of the snow with the clean white lines of the building. Yeah, that really I knew that beforehand that I could find some kind of image around that I could find an interesting image.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So like exactly, because my question was because we hardly have any snow. We had like some snow like this week or last week, I think, but it's like a very thin layer that's gone within an hour. So that's why I was like curious to those behind the scenes. And so for you mentioned like there's a hard end at the end of this year for the project. Is it because you feel like then it's done and you need to move on, or because then you've told what you want to say, or what makes?
Yeah, you could walk around forever, and because the landscape is continuously changing. Some places and the other places it stays the same for years and years, but when you start repeating yourself, and I'm not there yet, but I feel that at the end of this year I might be there, repeating myself, creating the same images. That's the moment when I said, okay, I'm saying it needs to end, because it needs to be. The thing is, I'm still interested by the landscape. I'm never bored by it, but when you start repeating yourself, it maybe you don't necessarily know, but that's in fact, it means that you're getting bored, and then you need to stop and change and so on, and do something else, and also launching a book, because I'm still have some editors that are interested, but launching, financing. Lectures is also something that I'm going to do. It takes a lot of time, so you need to be you need to have enough time to launch those projects as well. So so different things, but more or less it's because in those 5 years I managed to capture everything I wanted, and then it's time to move on to something else.
Hmm. Yeah, and like because I think you're well, I'm sure some of the previous guests had like books or exhibitions as well, but because it's specifically now for a project, like how do you go about like for example the book, like do you go to editors before you're finished with all the photos, or and is it more like you have the contact with the editors already, or?
For the previous two books, I had the contacts with an editor, but not going into details, but let's say that I'm looking for another editor at the moment. There are some contexts, interesting contexts, but not something that I haven't signed any contract and so on, because an advice is to every photographer is the book. The reason to print a book is not because it looks good on your portfolio, because it doesn't get you any news. Might get, but yeah, maybe not. It won't get you into new assignments. It might look good on your portfolio, but it's not. For me, I created books because a book is a medium to tell a story, and the combination between text and photos and so on. But the reason that I created the books was not because it's something that looks good on my portfolio. That's because it takes a lot of time and effort and money to publish, get the book published. So if that's the only reason because you like to publishing a book, or then I would advise there are a lot of different options to publish on demand, for example, websites to create your book. Then go through a publisher, because there are a lot of positive sides on the other side as well. I'm not saying it's negative, not at all, but it's for me, the first book was a dream coming true, and the second book as well. But there are a lot of different aspects that you learn the hard way. Yeah.
It feels like it's more a natural conclusion to the end of your project than really the end goal. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And let's say in the second book, Brussels en route, the purpose of the ride is the journey. Well, that's the thing that for me, I never started a project. Okay, it needs to be a book. And especially with Le Ring now, it's just working working for a couple of years on the project, but also talking to a lot of people who said to me, "Yeah, okay, but a book, yeah, the series would really fit in a book. It would really suit the series." Especially because I also work a lot with I write my own texts and so on. So that the combination of those two would really work well. So that's why I'm not saying that it will be a book, but that's why I'm still trying to get the book published.
Yeah, of course. Makes sense. Yeah, of course. It's yeah. It's a nice natural conclusion of a project. And then, yeah, like let's circle back again. Sorry for all the changing between projects, but to the Brussels en route part, because you mentioned of course you need to have the permission of the public transport company, MIVB, yeah. But is it like, because then is it like a permission for like 2 years you get, or is it like every month you need to
Yeah. Well, first of all, in the beginning, I received, I wouldn't say the written permission, but I received the agreement that it would be possible to just get the one permission for the whole project, the duration of the project. But that all changed because I really started photographing after I was already busy, but it was more prospecting and looking, okay, how I'm going to work, because you're in a very enclosed environment. And then I really started working on the series after the attacks, and then it completely changed, and I needed to ask permission each time when for each bus or tram or metro line.
Wow.
I always received the permission. They didn't say you're not allowed to go this or that route, or that goes to a neighborhood where we experience some problems with drivers and so on. But they always gave me permission, but I'm not sure quite why. But yeah, that's changed while I was because of the security measures that the Belgian government took.
Yeah, okay. And so it was a lot of like administration for you to get your to have your photos done. Yeah. And did they like follow up in between? Like, did you sometimes have to like how do you say, like, show results to them in the meanwhile, or was it like, here's permission, do whatever?
They first of all, the first book helped because they already saw I was really interested in the city, and I wasn't making the easier black and white images of and black, let's say, drug addicts in the metro, which unfortunately, we see regularly. Now, in those days, not that many, but now it's. But that's another situation.
That's a whole other podcast series that we can fill with it.
Yeah. But and also, from time to time, I think it was every 3 or 4 months, I came over there and we had a meeting, and I showed them the photos I took and so on. So, and then they saw, because I wouldn't say it changed. No, I'm quite sure it. I would have, with or without permission, I would have made the same images. That did not change. I never thought to myself, okay, but how are they going to react? Are they going to like it or not? But I can imagine that it might, for some people, work the other way, because you're quite afraid and so on. But it's an agreement I made with them, that if they have the right to say, okay, you can't use, let's say, 50% of the series, but if that would change the story, if that I wanted to tell, I'm not going to publish the book. And it wasn't blackmail or something. No, it's something I honestly said in the beginning. Okay, you are the owner and responsible and so on, and I completely get that and I understand it. But it's not that I'm going to like. It's not an infomercial for public transportation in Brussels.
Your creative freedom still.
And that's a gamble, but you always have to gamble a bit. It was a calculated gamble, but it was a gamble. Yeah,
that's part of street photography. I think it's all trying out and seeing what sticks. So, because you of course you had the first book about Brussels, and it helped to show your love for Brussels. And I see no other photo from outside of or far outside of Brussels, let's say.
No.
Is there a specific reason that you keep your focus on that region, or?
First of all, I do work as on assignment, but since my main focus is those personal documentary projects, people advised me show only those projects. There are 2 assignments, I guess, because they're linked to Brussels in some way or another. But show only those photo series on your website. And because it's something I found out by talking to people who know the business a bit, that's the best way forward. And for me, it's it grew. It grew on me. And I'm not saying that I'm not interested in what happens in the world, in other parts of the world, vice versa, because I really read a lot of newspapers and so on. But it's a personal choice, and if I'm allowed to quote Martin Parr when he was on his first talk, if he wouldn't get the first if you're allowed in Magnum, the photo agency, you need to defend yourself, defend your work. And what he said, I wasn't there, but it's what I read. Is what he said is the supermarket is my front line, and there were a lot of war photographers. For example, Henri Cartier-Bresson, one of the founding members, was still alive, and it really shocked. That's the story. Everyone who was attending the meeting. For me, it's a bit the same. I wouldn't say that you're not allowed to visit other countries or but you need to be sure. No, you need to be aware that you're looking at the other country with a different glass, with a Western European point of view, which is. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but when you're looking at some situation projects with the eyes of a local, you see it in a different way. And I wouldn't say it's more or less interesting, it's more or less better. No, but it's different. And for me, that's you need to be authentic. And for me, authentic means photographing the Brussels and its surroundings. And I'm not saying that my next project is going to be in Brussels. It might not. But for the moment, that's how I see things.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So you already mentioned the next project. Do you have ideas, or is it still?
Ideas, but first finish this one.
You have a list in a notebook, probably, like maybe this, maybe this.
Yeah. But didn't start because you've got people who work on a lot of personal projects at the same time. That's something that does not work for me. Because, like I already mentioned, I'm doing a lot of interviews with people. I'm reading a lot about the subject. It's also that's not something that I want to. I wouldn't give every detail or write every detail in the text, but for me, it's really important to grasp the whole situation, and then you can choose, and that's why it takes a lot of time to create the project, especially this one, the other ones as well, but this one maybe more. For example, you've got Stadbel, which is the Belgian agency of statistics, which got all kinds of numbers and graphics from birth to the car possession to. And I wouldn't say that I need to use them in the book or in the text or in the lecture, but it's something that I need to know to grasp the whole situation, and that takes time. And that's why I always work on one project and then finish it and go over to the next. But I have some ideas, some based in Brussels, some are in Brussels, some are not. But that's something that I'll look afterwards.
Yeah, okay. So like one more thing that you now mentioned, like you really do like a deep dive research. You mentioned like looking up statistics and stuff. Is it like, first of all, is it before your project? Is it during? Is it how essential do you think it is to your project? And like how does it influence your photography? Is there like a direct influence, or is it more like good to know and maybe you come up to something? Or in general, also with the interviews?
In general, it depends. First of all, I always start. I do some research, but I wouldn't say that I start studying before taking photos, because then you're really for me personally, I would be you're looking like this, a bit like the horse. I forgot the word in English, but
with the visors or whatever you call it.
Because you I need to have an open point of view, and gradually when I'm working on it, talking to people about it, and also reading a lot about it, then there's something. That's something I need to know more about. and that's then I'll look up, find if look for some text or studies, and then so yeah, it depends. But personally, I always start with an open point of view, with un regard ouvert, they say in French, and then gradually I start downsizing. But it's a different approach. You've got people who do the other way around, which is fine by me. It's for me it worked personally the best because it's such a big area. I worked more than 800 kilometers in those almost 5 years now. So then it helps me to focus on certain things, but without forgetting the most important things. And also, for example, I had a lot of interviews with people, researchers, or people who work in administration about the region, and they gave me new tips because, for example, with one organization, the Vlaamse Landmaatschappij, they said, "Oh, yeah, okay, we really like the series, but we don't see a lot of water in it, and you should know that how we deal with water, with springs, for example, is a really important thing that people tend to forget, and that's when I said, oh, they're right, and that's something that I need to focus more on, and so, but yeah, that's maybe that because I want to give a wide view. That's why I find it really important to study and to talk to a lot of people about it.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, and I think that's cool because, yeah, as you said, like everyone works in their own way, but I think the well researched um, uh, approach is very um, under highlighted. It seems like people should just go out with a camera and shoot, which can totally work. That's how I do it as well. But like I like the approach of thinking, speaking to people, uh, including their approach or not, of course, but like uh, meditating on it. Yeah, that's maybe the best way to say it. So to me, yeah, it's cool. I'm looking forward to see the end result of Le Ring because there are some photos that I really love already that I think are very great. You have like one of I think it's gonna be in Zaventem perhaps, like with the bridges of the road with like the small houses in between the pillars.
Diegem, yeah. And that's
Oh, it's Diegem.
Diegem,
Okay.
yeah, which is Zaventem, at that part. It's Diegem Low. Yeah, it depends which
Yeah.
part of Diegem. But yeah, and that's a good example because now it's totally changed because a lot of the bridges are demolished. They're going to construct new ones, and so that's something which I really like about photography. It freezes a moment, and also it gives an important message on how much the landscape is changing, how much the surroundings are changing, and not because there's a photo. Not quite sure. It's not on my website, I think, but yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a photo I made in the early days of the series of a zone under construction where they're going to build offices, and I made it at the end of 2020, and in a month or two ago, I passed by there by coincidence, and it's still more or less the same. Nothing has changed, and so it might change in an instant, and some things stays the same forever, and that's what I really I wouldn't say like because it's not a good thing necessarily, but it's important that you can that just by those different characteristics you can also tell a story, which then those characteristics aren't necessarily in the photo that you need to write the description or write text about it, but that you can tell something with a photo, but not necessarily with the image what you see, but also with what's surrounding it, which is hidden, and then you need to do something more with it. But that's what I really love with photography. It's not only the image; it's also that everything that's around it.
No, yeah, makes sense. So I'm thinking we should probably wrap it up there, because otherwise we'll be here for a few more hours, and I try to keep it within the hour. So thank you, Bram, for your time and insights.
Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. I was really happy you replied to my DMs, because I saw your pitch and I was like, okay, this is a very interesting project, especially for like the podcast, because it's like totally different from the others so far, but also because it's street photography, and also because to me, like, I really like Belgium, but Brussels specifically also because, like, as you said, there's like a very political edge to everything, but there's a lot of like cut and paste. Like, there's no uniformity. Like in the Netherlands, like entire neighborhoods are built in the same style, and here it's like, as you mentioned, the Four Seasons. Like it's I like that. A lot of people are against it, but to me, that's Belgium.
Yeah, it's typically Belgian. It's quite unique. Brussels, especially because due to the Flanders and Wallonian region and the Brussels region, and how they interact or not, and that's what created the situation. In fact, some guy I talked to, I'm not quite sure if I can mention it, but he said, yeah, it's a bit like Vatican City and Rome. You know, it's the same situation where they have some domains that they govern together, and there are some things that are separate, and that's a bit the same with Brussels, and also it tells a lot. And what I find interesting, if you draw out the route of Le Ring, it forms B, but upside down, mirror-wise, you'll see head case B in it.
Yeah, indeed.
And that's why. Well, that's also because if you work a lot on it, it's something that you find. But that's something that I really, because it's we tend to forget how important the city is to Belgium and the other way around, and that's what I wanted to that's also the reason why I'm really working on Brussels, because it's people, they look at it in a very black and white and mostly black way, but there's so many things going on. There's so many links. For example, the Flanders, Wallonian, and Brussels region around it are more or less one city in reality. For example, there are thousands of students going from Brussels to Flanders to study, and vice versa. There are a lot of people living in Flanders and going by car to Brussels. So they're more or less linked, and I'm not saying that we need that Brussels needs to be bigger and so on, but in reality it is. And
exactly. Yeah, I think the many traffic jams daily to Brussels. I'm going to be in one. I think in about 2 hours probably, because I'm going to Brussels today this evening. So I think the many traffic jams prove that Brussels is an essential part of Belgium for sure. So let's wrap it up there. If anyone wants to follow Bram, of course, you can follow him. The links are in the description to his Instagram and website. I'm not sure if you're on other channels
LinkedIn,
as well.
Instagram. I think we follow each other on LinkedIn as well.
Could be that I followed you there. So I'll put all those links in the description. Make sure to follow him for the amazing photos and to see the end results of Le Ring. Also, make sure to follow the podcast, of course, on your favorite platform, wherever you're listening to. You can also follow me for updates, of course. And then again, all the links are in the description or in the show notes. So see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye.